Welcome into this edition of Seattle Seahawks Today, powered by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. On today's show, we're going to head to Indianapolis, where we're going to let you hear directly from Seahawks GM John Schneider at his press conference at the 2025 NFL Draft Combine. Schneider had plenty to say when it comes to the Seahawks draft plans, as well as the rest of the offseason agenda. We'll go over that coming up in just a moment. Before we do, want to make sure you guys subscribe to Seattle Seahawks Today, as we're going to bring you coverage from Indianapolis all week long, as we're talking everything you need to know in terms of this NFL draft, as well as the rest of this offseason. If you're a diehard Seahawks fan, you need to subscribe. We got you covered each and every day here on Seahawks Today. And now, let's let you hear from John Schneider here on today's show.
Another year, excited to be here. Got done with the free agency meetings, draft meetings last week. We were able to get the scouts back for a weekend before we came down here and get this thing going again. And here we go, down here to figure out what the offseason is going to look like. So start. So let's go.
Having Mike on the coaching staff here compared to last year, how's that?
It helps a lot. You know, we didn't have the guys in the interviews last year, you know, so having the position coach, defensive coordinator, head coach, you know, having those guys in the room is a big deal to, you know, just get the players going and, like, the football knowledge. But yeah, it helps a lot. You know, they were just implementing all their systems last year, so it's an opportunity for these guys to get down here and get rocking. Biggest gap? It's just both sides of the ball. You know, I was just talking to Dave about this. I feel bad for our fans because, you know, like not making the playoffs 2 years in a row, and you know, so we gotta get Lou and rocking again. You know, we gotta get speed on defense and be able to run the ball and get our identity. You know, so the new coaching staff now, our new offensive staff, is pretty cool. You know, like a proven system, and the teachers are really impressive.
What do you like about that?
I'm sorry?
I just was going to say, what do you like about the new coaching staff? Those guys have all kind of worked together.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, so when we got here in 2010, you know, Alex Gibbs was here for a minute with us, and I had a little bit of exposure in Green Bay to the wide zone stuff, but you know, that Alex and Mike Shanahan, you know, those guys were obviously going to Super Bowls and stuff with it, right? So in Denver, and so like watching that over the years, that system, like again, proven system, and then you know Rick Dennison was there, and you know, so he's been involved with. So to have a number of people in that, like especially with our offensive line, so like John Benton, Rick Dennison, Clint's focus on running the football. Yeah, and Justin Alden, you know, played center and was a tight end run game guy for the Packers too. So, yeah, it's fun. It's good. It's a really cool group, and it's cool to kind of have things settled too. Because last year, you know, through our off-season process, you know, we were late with our hire, and then Mike, you know, was hiring a staff and kind of getting people together like throughout the free agents or the draft meetings. So this year to have, you know, be able to keep, you know, talking the same language, having the position coaches come in and present to us now, you know, before we start each position, like, hey, you know, this is what I want, this is what I'm looking for. It's really helped. It's just like you know, like we're constantly talking about that holistic approach of, you know, acquisition, sports science, player development, you know, like just bringing that whole thing together. And obviously, you know, the coaching is the number one priority, you know, especially on that side of the ball where we finish the season. Yeah. I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry. When the NFL world is giving up on quarterbacks? I don't think they're giving up on quarterbacks? Yeah. The evaluation is just just the football knowledge, the confidence, the person spending time with, you know, our connections to other coaches around the National Football League, players that have played with the individual, coaches that have coached the player. it's hard, without, when NFL Europe was around, it was awesome. Those guys had an opportunity to go play in the spring. And so there was just better development at that time for more seasoned quarterbacks. We want to be a smart, tough, physical, fast football team. And, we want to be able to get our home field advantage back and win multiple championships for our fans.
7 or 8 years ago, it was a big deal when a college player opted out of a bowl game. Now that doesn't seem to be a big deal. But some are opting out of regular season games, whether it's health-related or not. How do you evaluate a player that maybe decides to stop playing in the middle of November or even at halftime of a game in order to train?
They're all evaluated on an individual basis, so every circumstance is different. It depends on, what's going on with the player at the school, where he is medically, but it's just part of all part of the evaluation process. It's not good or bad. Yeah.
As a young kid,
yeah.
have you ever imagined that? What does that mean to you?
Good to see you, Les. It means a lot, actually. Growing up in Green Bay, that's why I have that affinity for every day, the fans. I always wanted to know that the guys over at the Packers facility were doing whatever they could to win football games. It was such a big deal. I know how much it meant to me. So, and I know a lot of the people working for the Packers and how much time and energy they've put into this. So I just think it's going to be awesome for the guys to be able to I just hope it's not snowing. Because remember the year we drafted Javon Walker, we got there was 3 feet of snow and he'd never even seen snow before. So some of these guys might be freaked out if there was a big snowstorm. But no, really excited for everybody at the Packers and just it's going to be a fun atmosphere.
John, Pete Carroll was saying around
competing in every aspect of building a football team every day. You're talking about Pete, right? Yeah. And his ability to instill confidence in people is second to none. And the energy. It's going to be it's a culture shift. I'm not exactly sure what it was in the past, but I know what's coming on. From Pete, we don't have enough time for that. But we did a lot of awesome stuff together, and I think it was 2 years, starting out 7 and 9. There's a lot of things we had to work through, and we overcame it. We sustained it. That's his positive approach is amazing. I always tell people I think his best coaching job was the year we lost, the year after we lost the Super Bowl. He was unbelievable that year.
John, it's clear that you emphasize the running game with the hires for the offensive coaching staff, but just how high of a priority was that for you? And do you think the NFL is trending back towards the running game being important for offense?
Yeah, it feels like it, right? But your ability to run the ball and condense the game and be able to stretch the field and throw the ball over the top, I don't think that's ever changed. You do see just from a technique standpoint, you do see the tackling not being right, especially in college football, and that's something that you want to be able to have that ability to play wherever you're going to play in Detroit, you're going to play at home, you're going to play in Philly. We want to be able to run the ball wherever you are, wherever you're going to play, and having that physical run game just gets the defense rocking too. Sorry, it's hot here. Holy cow! Sheesh.
Some GMs talk about wanting to get 75% of their picks, or they have some measure of success. How do you measure success for the personnel department year in, year out?
Every year, there's a constant evaluation of, okay, how do we acquire the player? We're all winning the decisions. So measuring is every year, how do we change our process? Have we emphasized enough in one area or another? How we manage our cap. That's usually a pretty big project after the draft, right? Where you're talking about, we've spent more money on this side of the ball than this side of the ball. Because, this is, cash and cap. You got to rob from Peter to pay Paul. So you got to make those decisions and then, how did we do it? What was our process? What was the decision-making process? and we're constantly like adapting and trying to figure that out as we go. You know, it's not like there's just one way to do things. You have to be super pliable. Where things stand? I'm not sure. He's on our team. Yeah, he's a big, strong, fast, physical receiver. Yeah. Well, there's just a little bit more clarity there, right? Because you've seen the system, we saw it, and you know, with the Vikings, we saw it in Denver, and then you know what they just went through in New Orleans. I mean, they started out really strong. They got real beat up, especially in the offensive line. But Clint did a great job. Like, and they're really, I mean, he's just got this really cool like calmness about him, and he's been around the league enough, especially with his father, to understand what the free agency process looks like, you know, what the draft process looks like, you know, team building, being pliable. You know, he's been around it. So I would say the experience. Yeah. Last year was like everybody was just coming together. We're kind of like learning each other's names. You know, like, okay, what do you like? We go through, you know, there's a level of like, you know, like I said, speaking the same language. So we had signed some guys in free agency that, you know, solid players, but weren't necessarily a good fit. So it's like, all right, we got to adjust on the fly. Like, let's not wait. Let's make decisions. And Mike's great that way. Mike's really, well, you guys know, you guys talk to him every day, but like really smart, clear communicator.
When you evaluate the players who played late in the college football season, in the playoff, the last two rounds, it was later than ever before.
Yeah.
When they come here, maybe they have to train the way others have, or certain times they suffer, their wings. How do you evaluate them? Do you evaluate them differently, or you go more on the tape as opposed to less on the stop?
No, it's, again, you're evaluating everybody individually. So how well they played, you know, what kind of injuries do they have, you know, what do the analytics people think, what do sports science people think, what are the coaches, you know, how the coaches value the player, what's the fit. So it doesn't necessarily, you know, there's a, if you're talking about like height, weight, speed, is that kind of what you're getting at? Like, and how does that? Yeah, we're actually more interested in the person and the competitor, what kind of football player they are, more than like, you know, the GPS times or the height, weight, speed, what they're doing here. You know, this is really, you know, for us, yeah, we're evaluating these guys in the workout, but it's more about the football, like their tape, what does their tape tell us, and then, you know, getting to know the person a little bit more here, and then the biggest thing is the medical. Besides free agency and the draft, and you know.
Speaking of quality receiver, what does receivers maybe 180, maybe 60 pounds have to do?
Yeah, when we talk about compensating factors, right? So what kind of compensating factors does the player have? Whether that's, if you're talking about durability in general, that's how they take care of themselves, work ethic, you know, what do the trainers at the school say, what do the strength conditioning guys say, how they evaluate the individual. So there always has to be some sort of, if you're undersized, you know, like you have to figure things out. Like I had to figure out how to like pass block, right? I mean, a little guy, like, what do? You could cut back then, so it's like, all right, like I'm gonna be cutting, I better be really good at that, otherwise I'm gonna get trucked, which I did a lot. You run over, sorry. Not that that's affected me over the years at all, or stayed with me. Yeah.
When you look at Ohio State receivers as they enter the draft,
Yeah.
what about them stands out in their development and what Brian Hartline is doing against Columbus that kind of sets them apart from other guys? Because every year there's a first-round receiver.
Yeah, he's a great teacher. I mean, you talk about acquisition and development, right? I mean, they're getting the best receivers. You know, I was just in Dallas a couple weeks ago, and his father came up to me, his son might go to Ohio State, and he was telling me about the recruiting process. And they're just rooting. I mean, they're obviously very good evaluators, and then he's such a great teacher. You know, played the game, knows what it takes. There's a mentality approach that they have. You know, they just have that receiver kind of swag about them, and it feels like they come into the league like ready to go.
Where does that show up? Like, where do you see them maybe be more ready?
All aspects, like their approach off the field, you know, the study habits, how they take care of themselves, whether they're in the facility or away from the facility. The route running, the precision, like being a precise route runner, working with the quarterbacks, having an understanding of feel for, how they run routes for this quarterback or that quarterback. It's a great question because they do seem like they're ahead of the game, and I would attribute that to Hartline for sure. He was a fun player too, like really good special teams player. So he had this like natural toughness about him, like really gritty, really good route runner himself, really good hands, worked his tail off. So. Well, there was a lot. I mean, he was extremely impressive in the interview, obviously. But then, speaking to everybody else, like that's interacted with him and worked with him over the years, all the background information was spot on. And then actually, it's even more impressive, like the more time you spend with him. And so I would say just the teaching. There's a really cool clarity about his teaching. And I'm not sure what he would tell you, but he was coaching freshman high school. He was in college. He just has a really, really cool way about him in terms of being in front of the room.
John, in your experience, at what point in this process trade markets for the top of the draft start to solidify? Like, when can you take seriously offers that you're hearing from?
Great question. There's kind of a baseline that we start this week. We're meeting with every agency you can meet with, and then every team, and we kind of tries to get a little bit of a little lay of the land. So it starts. I think a lot of that gets really, really serious about maybe 3 weeks out, 3 weeks out. Because at the end of the day, it's like we got to make a decision here, right? Let's roll. So. But out there, when we picked Spoon a couple of years ago, it was like people were talking, but you don't necessarily know what's real, what's not real. You know what I mean?
When you say 3 weeks out, do you mean from now or from the draft?
Before the draft, sorry.
Some teams have said in the past that they will take mock drafts
Yeah. Yeah.
Just for another kind of piece of it, is that something y'all kind of
Yeah, we have a guy, Patrick Ward, is an incredible guy, really talented. He works with Becca, and then they put together a really cool, they're constantly doing it, so it's everything. It's every mock draft you can think of. Shoot, now it's like what Vegas thinks, you know what I mean? Like anything you can put in the pile to evaluate, they're on it, yeah.
Does it help kind of establish or sort of confirm the tiers that you guys kind of think were parts of the draft are going to break?
Yes, to a certain extent, because it's constantly changing. Like I don't know how they do it, to be honest with you. But they're constantly one day he has a 5th round pick, next day he's a 3rd round pick. But it's just another tool for us to try to recognize how to navigate the draft and draft weekend, that kind of maneuver.
Thanks for joining us here on this edition of Seattle Seahawks Today. For continuing Seahawks coverage from the NFL Draft Combine and more, you got to be subscribed to the channel. You can subscribe now for free. YouTube.com/SeahawksTV. I'm Tyler Jones. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.